It started with a broadcast, grainy footage, a stern-faced anchor, and a claim that sent shockwaves across the region. Iranian state television announced it had obtained a treasure trove of secret Israeli military documents. The anchor's voice was steady, but the implications were seismic. According to Iran's intelligence minister Esmail Khatib, these documents weren't just sensitive, they were explosive. They allegedly revealed details about Israel's nuclear facilities, its covert operations, and its strategic alliances with the West. Tehran claimed it now held the blueprint of Israel's military ambitions, and it was ready to expose them to the world. The timing couldn't have been more calculated. Tensions in the Middle East were already simmering. Proxy conflicts, cyber attacks, and diplomatic standoffs had become the norm. But this was different. If the documents were authentic, they could confirm what many in the region had long suspected, that Israel's military strategy wasn't just about defense. It was about dominance. The first wave of leaks focused on Israel's nuclear infrastructure. Satellite images, facility layouts, and internal memos were shown in a 28-minute documentary aired by Iranian media. Some of the visuals, critics noted, were already publicly available. But others, if genuine, hinted at a far more aggressive posture than Israel had ever admitted. One document allegedly outlined contingency plans for rapid deployment of nuclear-capable systems in response to regional threats. Another detailed covert surveillance operations in neighboring countries, including Lebanon, Syria, and even parts of the Gulf. Iranian officials framed the leak as a defensive maneuver, a way to expose what they called Zionist expansionism. But behind the rhetoric was a deeper question. Was Israel quietly laying the groundwork to control the Middle East, not just through diplomacy or deterrence, but through overwhelming military superiority? The Israeli government, predictably, dismissed the leaks as propaganda. Officials in Jerusalem accused Tehran of fabricating documents to stir regional unrest and distract from its own internal crises. But behind closed doors, Israeli intelligence agencies reportedly launched a full-scale damage assessment. If even a fraction of the leaked material was authentic, it could compromise years of covert operations and expose strategic vulnerabilities. The stakes were high not just for Israel but for its allies. Washington, London, and Paris issued cautious statements, urging restraint and calling for verification. But analysts noted a shift in tone. For years, Israel had operated under a veil of strategic ambiguity, especially regarding its nuclear capabilities. The leaks threatened to pierce that veil, and if the documents were real, they could force Western powers to reevaluate their support, or at least their silence. Meanwhile, in the Arab world, reactions were mixed. Some governments condemned the leaks as destabilizing. Others saw them as vindication. For decades, Israel's military dominance had been a source of tension. Now, with alleged proof of expansionist strategies, critics argued that Israel wasn't just defending itself. It was positioning to reshape the region's balance of power. The leaked documents also hinted at psychological operations, campaigns designed to influence public opinion in neighboring countries. These included media manipulation, cyber warfare, and targeted disinformation. If true, it suggested that Israel's ambitions extended beyond borders and battlefields. It was about controlling narratives, shaping perceptions, and winning wars before they began. In Tel Aviv, the mood was tense. Security was tightened around key installations. Military analysts debated the fallout. And in the Knesset, lawmakers demanded answers. Was Israel's strategic posture compromised? Or was this just another chapter in the long, shadowy war of intelligence and counterintelligence? As the story gained traction, international media outlets began dissecting the implications. Analysts on CNN, Al Jazeera, and BBC debated the authenticity of the documents and what they might mean for regional stability. Some argued that Iran's move was a calculated attempt to shift the narrative away from its own nuclear program and toward Israel's alleged ambitions. Others saw it as a rare glimpse into the shadow wars that define Middle Eastern geopolitics. The documents, if real, painted a picture of a state deeply embedded in strategic planning far beyond its borders. One memo allegedly outlined a multi-phase strategy to influence political outcomes in neighboring countries through economic pressure, intelligence sharing, and covert support for opposition groups. Another detailed contingency plans for military intervention in case of regime collapse in key Arab states. These weren't just defensive postures, they were blueprints for influence. In Riyadh and Cairo, the revelations sparked quiet concern. Both Saudi Arabia and Egypt have long maintained uneasy relationships with Israel, cooperative in some areas, cautious in others. If Israel was indeed positioning itself as a regional hegemon, it could disrupt the delicate balance of power that has kept open conflict at bay. Diplomats scrambled to assess the fallout, while intelligence agencies reviewed their own vulnerabilities. Back in Iran, the leaks were celebrated as a victory. State media portrayed the operation as a masterstroke of counterintelligence. But skeptics questioned the timing. Was this truly a breakthrough, or a distraction from domestic unrest and economic hardship? Regardless, the documents had shifted the conversation. Israel's military doctrine, once shrouded in secrecy, was now under the microscope. And the question lingered. Was this the beginning of a new era of transparency, or just another move in a long game of strategic deception? In Washington, the revelations triggered a quiet storm. Congressional aides confirmed that closed-door briefings were held with intelligence officials. The U.S. has long been Israel's staunchest ally, providing billions in military aid and sharing high-level intelligence. But if Israel had been pursuing a strategy that included covert influence operations in allied nations, it could complicate diplomatic ties. The documents allegedly referenced surveillance programs targeting foreign embassies, including those of friendly states. That detail, if verified, would be hard to ignore. European capitals responded with similar unease. In Berlin, officials called for an independent investigation. In Paris, lawmakers demanded transparency. And in London, the Foreign Office issued a statement emphasizing the importance of regional stability and mutual trust. The leaks had done more than expose military plans. They had cast doubt on the integrity of long-standing alliances. Inside Israel, the political fallout was growing. Opposition leaders accused the government of recklessness, demanding a full inquiry into how such sensitive information could be compromised. Some called for resignations. Others warned that the leaks could embolden Israel's adversaries and weaken its deterrence. The military, meanwhile, remained silent. But behind the scenes, contingency plans were being revised, protocols tightened, and damage control teams mobilized. Iran, for its part, continued to drip-feed new revelations. Each broadcast added layers to the narrative: maps, intercepted communications, and alleged plans for regional cyber dominance. The strategy was clear: keep the story alive, keep Israel on the defensive, and shift the geopolitical conversation. Whether the documents were entirely authentic or partially fabricated no longer mattered. The perception had changed. Israel was no longer just a regional power, it was being portrayed as a shadow empire, orchestrating influence from behind the scenes. The broader implications of the leak extended far beyond Israel and Iran. In think tanks from Brussels to Beijing, strategists began reassessing the Middle East's power dynamics. If Israel was indeed pursuing a doctrine of regional influence, militarily, politically, and digitally, it could reshape alliances, trigger arms races, and redefine what security means in the 21st century. The documents didn't just suggest military readiness. They hinted at a philosophy of proactive control, of shaping outcomes before threats materialized. In the United Nations, calls for an inquiry grew louder. Some member states demanded Israel clarify its strategic intentions. Others urged Iran to release the full cache for independent verification. But both nations remained locked in their narratives, Israel denying, Iran doubling down. The truth, as always, lay somewhere in the shadows. For ordinary citizens across the region, the revelations stirred unease. In Beirut, families wondered if they were being watched. In Amman, students debated the ethics of preemptive strategy. And in Gaza, where the cost of conflict is felt daily, the idea of a regional superpower pulling strings from afar felt all too real. The leaks had done more than expose secrets. They had ignited a conversation about sovereignty, transparency, and the future of peace. And yet, amid the chaos, one fact remained clear: the Middle East was changing. Whether through leaked documents, shifting alliances, or emerging technologies, the old rules no longer applied. Israel's role, once defined by survival, was now being recast as something more ambitious, more complex, and perhaps more controversial. The question wasn't just whether Israel wanted to control the Middle East. It was whether the region was prepared for what that control might look like.